All right, what's up, YouTube? Salty Shopkeep here, that's my new nickname. And I'm here with Jimmy, who is Two Soup for You.
Hello, hello.
And we're going to do a deck tech on, I think this is Bant colored, and it's revolving around Vivien's Arkbow, correct?
That is correct.
All right, so I'm going to read off the list real quick. So if you are interested in this deck, open up Notepad, start typing really fast. So we got 4 Vivien's Arkbows, 4 Merfolk Branchwalker, 2 Mystic Archaeologists, 3 Knight of Autumn, 3 Kiora Behemoth Beckoner, 1 Ripjaw Raptor, 4 Wilderness Reclamation, a Golden Guardian, 3 Nullhide Ferox, 4 Mystic Snake, Frilled Mystic, 2 God Eternal Ronus, 3 Dream Eaters, and 1 Palaka Worm. And then for the lands, it's a pretty typical looking Bant mana base. So you got 1 Azorius Guildgate, 4 Hallowed Fountains, 4 Breeding Pools, 4 Hinterland Harbors, 3 Forests, an Arch of Araska, 4 Sunpel Grove, and 4 Temple Garden. All right, so obviously the deck is revolving around Vivien's Arkbow. So I guess, Jimmy, tell us, how did it play tonight?
Tonight, it unfortunately did pretty poorly. I played it I only got 3 games because one of them was a bye.
3 rounds.
Right.
3 matches.
Thank you. We went up against a Gruul aggro deck. We went up against a White Weenie deck. And then we also played a Garrison's Bant mid-range deck. It did pretty solidly against the Bant mid-range. We went to turns in that round. The other 2 decks, there was some counterplay, but this has trouble overcoming large creatures that keep on coming at you. So in most cases, Gruul is going to be a lose.
And then how did it feel against I guess it was Boros aggro, right?
Oh, yeah, you're right. You're right, Boros. Actually. It was Boros.
It was Antonio, I assume.
Mm-hmm, that's correct.
How did it feel against the Boros deck?
There it's pretty interesting because their removal is the Convoke enchantment.
Yeah, Conclave Tribunal.
So what we can do a lot of the time is, especially in game 2 and beyond, when we've sided in our Deputies of Detention, is at instant speed tap the Arkbow, go get a Deputy out of the deck, bring it, get the enchantment, bring our creature back, which is actually something we did tonight. I was lucky enough to pull the Deathgorge Scavenger back out from the enchantment right when Antonio was attacking in, allowing me to exile one of his creatures, gain life, and then create an additional blocker.
Okay, interesting. So I noticed there's not a whole lot of one-ofs. You do have 1 Golden Guardian, 1 Ripjaw Raptor, 1 Palaka Worm. Mm-hmm. So most of the time, when you have decks like this, a lot of people will do like a toolbox deck where they have a lot of different one-ofs that they can go fetch for different situations. I don't think you took that approach here, did you?
No, I didn't. And it might be because of my lack of familiarity with the game. I've only been playing for about 6 months. But what I found when I was testing on Arena, because I did try to stick with some one-ofs and two-ofs, was that I couldn't find enough creature-based removal.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, not in these colors.
Right, to make it consistent enough when there were, again, the one-ofs and two-ofs.
Yeah.
So what I tried to do is make it as consistent as possible so that when I do find the opportune time to tap the Arkbow and discard something, I'm going to get something that will be useful.
Okay. Yeah, I think if you went the removal route, you'd pretty much have to go with black.
Right. Yep.
And obviously we're not playing black. All right, so how did you feel about, I guess we'll go over all the creatures here. Mm-hmm. So Ripjaw Raptor, it's a one-of. There are 2 more in the sideboard, which we'll talk about later. How did you, what situations were situations that you would go for the Ripjaw Raptor out of the deck? Obviously, you're fetching it with the Arkbow most of the time.
So the big question here is Ripjaw Raptor versus Nullhide.
Okay.
And I had to figure out how many of each I wanted in this deck. Ripjaw Raptor is nice against aggro because if you go and get it after they've declared attack, then you'll be able to block with it and draw a card. Mm-hmm. And that's always good. Having card advantage with this deck, against an aggro deck especially, is going to win you the game.
And obviously the Nullhide Ferox is a bigger body. I guess once you have the Arkbow in play, you can almost cast everything anyways. Like, you're not casting a Reclamation and you're not casting the Kiora.
Right, exactly.
So it's not too much of a downside.
No.
But the nice thing about that is playing against people like me who run Basilica Bellhaunt, having the Ferox in the deck is a huge advantage.
Against Grixis as well.
Yep.
Anyone who plays the creature Nico Bolas, you'll be able to choose to discard the Nullhide Ferox. And surprisingly, against Esper decks as well, I've done this way more times than you would believe. I'll have so many lands because this deck runs 25, and 2 other cards in my hand, one of them being a Feryx. I can quickly tap the Arkbow for 0, discard the second card, and force them to Thought Erasure my Feryx after they've cast it, which is pretty neat.
Yeah, okay. And then we've got Merfolk Branchwalker. I'm assuming it's an early game. It blocks.
Yep.
It also hopefully finds you a land.
Better than the Llanowar Elves, which I originally tried.
Okay.
They get removed too easily, and like this one can act as a blocker. Sometimes it gets you an additional card.
Yep. And then we got 2 Mystic Archaeologists. Obviously, this one's a mana sink for the Reclamations.
Absolutely.
Draws a lot of cards.
It makes the Arkbow better as well because it's a creature.
Yep. And then we got 3 Knight of Autumns. These are probably a nod to aggro, I'm assuming, in the main deck.
Not originally. Yeah. In fact, against aggro, I'll usually take them out and throw in the deputies, depending on which aggro deck we're facing.
Yeah, I would probably never do that against mono red.
Right. Yeah.
But yeah, because so obviously this kills the Experimental Frenzy, or it just gains you life.
Yep.
And actually a 4/3 it's not hard for them to deal with, but in the face of get 2 Lava Runners and stuff, it blocks all day long.
Oh yeah, and soaking up their spells is good because once mono reds run out of spells, it's a lot easier for us to take advantage of that.
Over, yeah. And the reason I don't ever like Deputy against mono red is because you're gonna exile something. It's going to be a Chain Whirler or a Viashino Pyromancer. They're going to Lightning Strike it and get it back and deal to enter the battlefield again. So don't do that. Then we've got 4 Frilled Mystics. I would like to call them Mystic Snakes because I like that card. So obviously it's a counterspell creature. Let me read the Arkbow here. Yeah, so it's an Arkbow counterspell. Correct.
Yeah, yeah.
Yep.
So anytime our opponent is trying to cast a spell and we have 4 mana or more open, we can tap Arkbow, try to get a Frilled Mystic out of the deck.
Yep, so that's cool. And then we've got, let's see, 2 got Eternal Ronus. I don't know if there's anything you need to say about him.
Well, you got a lot of options there.
He's really good.
Yeah, it's interesting. We haven't talked about the Dream Eaters yet, but these 2 pair very well.
Yeah.
And it surprises our opponents a lot of the time. When we've only got 1 Dream Eater up that's 4 power on the board, they think they're safe, get a God Eternal Ronus out with the Arkbow, and suddenly they're gone.
Yep. And then the 1 Palaka Worm, when do you fetch that one out of the deck, I guess?
Palaka Worm is... So a lot of the time we want to try to use the Arkbow on our opponent's turn in response to something, because we're going to have the Knight of Autumns, the Deputies, the Frilled Mystics, things that do things in response to their stuff. But what we try to do with the Palaka Worm in most cases is use our end step with a Reclamation to maximize the number of cards that we're sorting through and take that in our end step.
Okay.
Because it's the surest time that we're ever going to get it. It feels bad to try and get a Palaka Worm with only 7 mana, especially because that's a very defensive play, I guess, and it's probably not going to save you a lot of the time, just stall things out.
Okay. And then we've got this 1 Golden Guardian. What is this here for?
Yeah, so I thought maybe Biogenic Ooze would work in this deck, and it doesn't very well, because it doesn't have enough impact immediately. It'll just end up getting removed. What I like about the Golden Guardian is that I can use it on a Raptor, or activate its ability on a Raptor, or Nullhide and Ronus, in some cases the Dream Eater if we really feel like it. But when it flips, it is a land that taps for 2, and we can also use its ability, which requires that you tap it down, plus 4 other mana. You'll create a 4/4 Golem.
So another mana sink.
Yeah, just another mana sink, but it also ramps you a little bit. It's super nice, because it's another thing that untaps with Reclamation.
So you could make 2 golems every turn, or whatever. And then obviously Arch of Araska down here is also a good mana sink. It lets you draw extra cards.
Yeah, we always prefer the other 2, but this just makes us more consistent.
Yep. And then we've got, I think we've talked about every card except the Kiora. I mean, obviously there's a lot of creatures that have 4 power.
Oh yeah.
So she draws a lot of cards.
Yeah, and I guess that's the reason why we have this over some other things. We like the Raptors, the Nullhides. We try to maximize the number of 4 power creatures. Other nice thing about Kiora that you don't expect, I think, right away, is that when you have enough mana, sometimes it's very nice to main phase, tap down your Arkbow, if you've got a Reclamation on the board, use Kiora to untap the Arkbow. You've got all your stuff back open for their turn.
It gives you extra activations on the Arkbow.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. All right, so let's move on to the sideboard. I'll read it here. We've got 3 Deputy of Detention, 1 Death Gorge Scavenger, 2 Crawl Harpooners, a Time Wipe, 2 Dovin's Vetoes, 1 Azor the Lawbringer, 2 more Ripjaw Raptors, 2 Shalais, and then 1 Dovin Hand of Control. So I think usually what we want to talk about with sideboards is your game plan for different matchups. So let's just, what did you played against Gruul? How did you sideboard against the Gruul deck?
Oh man,
look on your face says it was probably wrong.
Yeah, I mean, Gruul is just the toughest one for me right now, and I want to say off the bat, I'm not married to this sideboard. There's a lot of tension between playing on Arena and playing in paper for me right now.
A different metagame for sure.
So this is a little tougher. We definitely put in the Time Wipe. If we resolve
Makes
a Time
sense.
Wipe, that's very, very good for us, especially because in a lot of cases we get the Deputy, and we can pull that back to our hand for an additional Deputy of Detention. But going up against Gruul aggro, they obviously have flyers. Oftentimes the Crawl Harpooner doesn't quite help against the Rekindling Phoenix because we don't have a way to get rid of the token afterward. I'm not sure about the Dovin. I put him in here just because I didn't have something for the 15th slot, but I had him in against Gruul, and it's nice when he's able to stop the Skargan from beating down. But against Null Hides, you have to pay the 2 to use Dovin's abilities, so it's tough.
To use his ability?
Or to
cast him.
I'm sorry, when you're playing against an Null Hide and you want to use his ability.
Oh, to target it because it has Hexproof. Correct. Okay. So how did you sideboard in that matchup?
Yeah.
Against Gruul.
Right. Let's see. Against Gruul, I think we took out 1 Frilled Mystic. We took out the Golden Guardian because we were never going to hope at getting the Golems off. I think we took out a Dream Eater as well because it's expensive. Leave the Palaka Worm because the life is always important against these decks. And must have been, we took out the 2 Mystic Archaeologists. So we brought in the 3 Deputies of Detention, a Time Wipe, I believe the Dovin, and 1 Ripjaw Raptor.
Okay. So
hopefully that was 6 and 6.
Yeah, I think you missed 1 that you pulled out, but that's okay. And then how'd you sideboard against the Boros deck?
The Boros deck, I think we only swapped out 4 cards. It must have been pretty similar. Gosh, it was only 15 minutes ago, so you'd think I'd remember. I know the cards that we brought in were, it included Death's Gorge Scavenger.
Okay. Yeah, you said you fetched that one at instant speed at one point.
That's correct. We took out 2 of the Null Hides, brought in 2 Ripjaw Raptors instead.
Okay.
Because their red cards are going to be damage based, and when they're attacking in with all those tokens, it means they can't because they don't want to let me draw a card.
Yeah, every time the Legion War Boss makes a token that's forced to attack, you get to draw a card.
Absolutely, and we love that. We love it so much. Beside that, I mean, it must have been 1 or 2 Deputies of Detention. I can't remember what I would have brought out. Possibly a single Knight of Autumn for a Deputy.
Okay. And then, let's see, what was your other matchup?
We had the Bant mid-range.
Against Garrison, Bant mid-range. How'd you sideboard there? If you can remember that far back.
Yeah, that's pretty far back. Well, we never brought in any Dovin's Vetoes. I definitely had a Time Wipe against Garrison. You'll see that in the video. I believe I might have taken out all 3 Knight of Autumns in favor of the Deputy of Detentions because in the first game, Garrison was buffing his creatures a lot with his Shalai. And he also had Oketras, which even if they're able to be put 3rd from the top of the deck, it's still nice to remove them with a Deputy because it slows them down.
Well, and if you bounce the Deputy and then replay it, then you can deal with it again.
Exactly.
So.
And I think we did do that in that video. We had a Deputy in the field, used Time Wipe, brought it back.
Yep. And a good way for you to deal with that, if it lines up this way, is like if you can't counter it on the way down, you can bounce it back into their library and counter it on the way down again, maybe. And you get a lot of chances with that with the Dream Eaters too.
Yep. So I can't remember what we took out there. Might have been the Golden Guardian for the Time Wipe.
Okay. And then, so You didn't bring in the vetoes. Those are
Mhm.
probably just going in against control, I assume, to
Oh
protect
yeah,
your
yep,
things.
always against control.
What's Azor in here for?
I
Just wanted to play it.
Azor's he's such a fun little. He's not great, because to get his effect, you have to attack in with him and spend all of your mana. And even when you do get to pay some mana, you're not gaining that much life. The reload can be nice, but he's not performing as well as I'd like him to.
Okay.
I brought him in because I was playing so many Phoenix decks, Arclight Phoenixes.
On Arena, I assume.
No, in this very room.
Oh.
There was one evening where we had, and it might have been just a couple of weeks ago, 3 different people playing Phoenix.
Okay.
And
I must not have played that week.
yeah, so
I haven't played
against any
weeks.
flyers. I think I originally brought him in because of Arena, and I was playing against so many Thief of Sanities, and obviously
Okay.
he's expensive to be blocking a Thief of Sanity, but
Yeah.
I mean, just experimenting with some cards.
Well, I mean, anything you can sink mana into with Wilderness Reclamation is probably worth trying.
Yep.
So
Unfortunately, Azor is never better than a Dream Eater or a Palaka Worm.
Okay.
So I would, if we're looking for other cards to put in, I'd probably take
play
Azor
one
out.
more of those before you play him. Is what you're saying. Okay. And then, so Crawl Harpooners are going in against Drake's Phoenixes, I assume.
So much.
Lyra, it kills Lyra, kills Nicol, or not? Yeah, I guess it kills creature Nicol Bolas.
Yep.
Niv Mizzet. You're obviously discarding cards. There's potentially creature cards being discarded.
Oh yeah.
Lots of stuff going to the graveyard. So Crawl Harpooner gets a lot of undergrowth.
By the time that we're getting a Crawl Harpooner from our deck, we've definitely got 3 or 4 creatures in the graveyard already. And the neat thing about him is that he doesn't have to be used to block creatures. He's a really, really strong any creature blocker when you pull him from your deck in response to your opponent's declare attack.
And I think we've kind of talked about everything. You said you're not too sure about the Dovin.
Yeah, not too sure.
That was just your flex slot.
Yep. Just wanted to see how he did. His passive ability is interesting, but doesn't seem to do a lot against anything that isn't Phoenix.
Sure. And then Shalais, I don't think we said anything. When were you bringing those in? Or what are they for, I guess?
Yeah, Shalais
Don't know if
for
you brought them in tonight or not.
definitely against Phoenixes. Sometimes Espers, depending. She is the nicest thing to try and get when you're going up against a Thief of Sanity that's on the board. And you can play her relatively early, so it's more of a reliable blocker. What's cool is that her ability is actually useful. I think most of the time I've seen people play Shalai, they haven't been able to consistently put counters on creatures.
Or they forget about it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But in a lot of cases, that's not why she was there. But with our Wilderness Reclamations, it's another mana sink, and we usually have quite a few creatures on the board.
Okay, so after playing it tonight, are there any changes you'd want to make for next week in the main deck? And I guess that is very meta-dependent. Our metagame is probably different than yours, than the YouTube viewers' metagame. But might as well talk about changes that you might do.
Yeah, the main deck, if I took out anything based on the meta in this location, I would probably take out a Dream Eater. Even though Dream Eater's great and you can flash it in on your end step with a Wilderness Reclamation, we just don't end up getting there against aggro decks.
Okay.
So
So
she'll
what
slow
would
him down.
be,
But
so really only one thing that you're not too thrilled with in the main deck. What would you put in to replace it?
that's where I don't have many suggestions.
Okay.
So that's the problem. I was trying to build a deck that didn't cost as much. I think MTG Goldfish shows that this is $250 right now, which I get isn't exactly super budget.
A lot of it's probably lands too.
I'm avoiding specifically cards like Lyra, which would be great here, but she's too pricey. She's about to rotate, and I am not about that life right now. So it's hard to make recommendations because I've been playing with an even more limited pool of cards than we have available to us in Standard.
Yeah. Is there any? I guess there is Branch Walkers. Is there really anything that rotates?
Yeah.
Guardian?
So the Ripjaw Raptors, the Guardians, the Branch Walkers,
Archaeologists, platform.
Yeah. Well, but in most cases, I was trying to, like we can see, a lot of guilds and allegiance, and some War of the Spark.
Trying to not buy old cards.
And it's very, very intentional on my part.
Yep. Okay, so I guess the last thing is the sideboard. So it sounds like you'd pull out the Azor, maybe pull out the Dovin.
I'd say strong yes to both of those.
Any others that you'd pull?
No, they all have their use cases. The Death Gorge Scavenger has been pretty cool so far. I've used him the least out of everyone, but consistently getting his effect is nice. Dovin's vetoes are necessary. The
Yeah.
time wipe is better than expected as well.
Okay. What would you put in to replace those two? Anything on your radar?
Let's see. It's possible if I wanted a similar effect to Azor, but a little bit more useful, I could try a Roll-esque. He's cheaper, he's flying. Putting counters on another creature immediately can be nice. The Proliferate can be nice, especially because we have the Branchwalkers and the Knights of Autumn. That might be a way that we could key this deck a little bit differently and possibly be more aggressive.
It's also lower curve.
Yeah.
He's
of course.
5, right?
Yep.
Yeah. And then Dovin?
Not sure. Trying to find more cards that slow down our opponent.
What about maybe a Vivien?
Tried Vivien.
Didn't like her?
No, it's tough, yeah. It just feels like you'd rather have the Kiora,
Okay.
strangely.
No, I mean, it gives you extra activations on the Arkbow, so I
Yeah,
can see that.
Kiora just works so well.
What about four Kioras?
Possibility.
I don't know if you ever
knows?
bring in the fourth one. Like, is that better than something else? But
Yeah,
I mean,
unfortunately, our early game is, we try to Arkbow and Kiora and Wilderness Reclamation, but
Yeah,
that leaves
the
us without a
curve.
lot of creatures.
Yeah.
So I probably wouldn't put in a fourth Kiora just because
yeah.
we already feel creature light in the early game.
Okay, so we got one flex slot we're not totally sold on.
But if you have suggestions, that's what the comments
My
are for.
suggestion was actually the Vivien that you've already play tested.
Yeah.
I mean, you just have a lot of creatures, so it seems like
Seems
she
to
would
make
be.
sense.
Yeah, it seems like she would always have a creature under her, but
When she doesn't land, it hurts
Yeah.
because we have 25 lands and sometimes you just hit 3 of those.
yeah.
Um,
I suppose you could always just play another like Deputy or Harpooner or something in the sideboard.
Absolutely. And I would probably, before anything else, put in a third Harpooner.
Yeah. I
Get
think
that more
Harpooner
consistent.
is a pretty solid card. All right, so let's see. Your record, you had 3 losses and a bye, correct?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I mean,
so,
strictly speaking, the first game was a tie, but we
Oh,
very
that's
politely
true.
conceded.
That's true. So the official record of 1-3 is, it earns a pity pack here. So
Oh, yeah.
we're gonna open this on camera.
This is embarrassing. Am I going to be able to get it open?
Nope.
There we go.
I want to
Okay.
bend the cards to open it.
So we go through one at a time or what?
Yeah, you can slow roll it if you
Oh,
want.
gosh. All right.
Here, let me
Hopefully
fix
we're
the
visible.
camera so I can see.
Are we
Yep, there we
visible?
go.
Let's see. So we got a Spellkeeper Weird, Uncrop Invader, War Screecher, Ashiok Skulker, Vivien's Grizzly, Spark Reaper, Herald of the Dreadhorde, Gateway Plaza, Tamio's Epiphany, Trusted Pegasus, Bleeding Edge, Heartwarming Redemption.
We got to slow roll this. Oh, you can already
now that
kind
we're
of
at
see
the-
what it was, couldn't you?
Oh, could you?
I don't know.
I didn't see
maybe,
it.
maybe.
Arlen Voice the Pack, Massacre Girl.
See, that's what I was actually thinking of. If you went black, you could play like Ravenous Chupacabra, Murder Dog, Death Dingo.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
And Massacre Girl would be a 5-drop to play in that.
I played a lot of those colors trying to test it out. I think there's a lot of interesting stuff to be done there. Unfortunately, you miss out on the Frilled Mystics.
Yeah, you'd have to play Sultai. And you lose... Actually, you really don't lose much in white, do you? You lose Knight of Autumn.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, because you take out the white. You don't lose the Frilled Mystics.
Yeah. So you lose Deputy in the sideboard. You lose Time Wipe, Azor, which you're taking out, Dovin's Veto, which you could run negates, and Shalai. I guess Shalai is pretty strong, so I don't know.
Yeah.
If it's worth
but
losing her.
it's like you said. There's a lot of room for messing around in those colors.
Yeah. Sultai would definitely be an interesting one. So I guess that wraps it up. Thanks for watching, YouTube. Like, comment, and subscribe. I gotta say it. Just everyone does, so I might as well say it too.